what's going on, Facebook family, YouTube, whatever platform you're watching it from. Pastor Andrew representing Jeremiah Generation. Just want to talk a little bit about temperance. Want to talk a little bit about self-control, just everything that goes along with it. It's basically, of course, the fruit of the Spirit, what the fruit of the Spirit consists of. We know it consists of a lot of things: joy, love, peace, goodness, temperance, faith, meekness, But I definitely wanted to point out temperance, definitely wanted to point out self-control, which is one of the things that I believe this pandemic and, the year 2020 has definitely taught us as a whole country, just as a, United States, as a, complete human race of people. It's taught us self-control, and it showed us the areas in our lives that we don't have control in. And, basically showed us that how necessary having self-control was or is based upon, what's going on, pretty much, as it relates to the pandemic. It seems like our world has been, I want to say, kind of like comfortable, over the years. Our world has been kind of like just lackadaisical in certain ways, kind of going with emotions, kind of just, not really, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's kind of like, we kind of going with emotions. But 2020 came, and COVID-19 came. And what it did was it kind of, brought us in a place of uncomfortability. It brought us in a place of things that seemed like, being out of control. And, it seems like, we're losing our grip, on the things that we did have control over, such as, our job, such as our careers and our education system, such as, our health. It seems like, with the COVID-19 hit, our health has been definitely, as a whole, and as Americans, and just over the entire nation, our health has been attacked, due to COVID-19. And so one thing about it that God is trying to do, he's trying to get us to allow him to have complete control in our lives, and for us to relinquish control over the things that, we're never meant to have control over. A lot of times we submit as Christians certain things unto God. We submit certain things under subjection to God, and then we go ahead and we take control, or we try to take control over certain things that we didn't submit to God. We want to take control over, our finances, but, we say, God, you can have control over my health, and we kind of do a trade-off situation. We kind of say, well, God, I'll swap you, if you take control over this, I'll remain in control over that. But in essence, if God is really Lord over your life, if he's really Lord over your circumstances, he's really Lord over your situations, he wants complete control over every endeavor. He wants complete control over everything about you. He wants complete control over your attitude. He wants control over, your, just your innermost being. He wants control over your marriage. He wants control over your children, your parenthood, your sonship, your daughtership. He wants control over pretty much everything about you, and, in order to get that control, sometimes he has to allow things to get unbalanced. He has to allow things to fly off the handle. He has to allow things to fly out of our control completely. So that way, he can show us that we don't have control over it. He can show us that, we need him, more so now than ever. This year has proven that we've needed God more than ever in our education centers, in our careers. We've needed God more than ever as it relates to health. We've needed God more than ever as it related to just the sanity of our natural minds, the sanity and a peace that only he can give, that the world can't give and that the world can't take away. This year alone has showed us that, some of us we've lost relatives. Some of us have lost family members during this year because of COVID-19 and because of other reasons. But one thing God wants to do is show us that if we give him complete control over it, it's not that, those things won't be painful. It's not that those things won't be uncomfortable, but at the same time, at least because he has control, We won't have to worry about having to, make an outcome or determine an outcome for ourselves. Because in a lot of ways, we want to determine our own outcome as human beings. We want to, kind of predict our own destiny, while at the same time, we want God to bless whatever it is that we put our hands to. And, the only way that works is, by God having complete control over our lives, complete, utter, control and, power, in our lives, in every area across the board, no matter how small, no matter how big it is. He wants to be the center of attention. He wants to be the one that, guides us and directs us, just like in Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he'll direct your paths. For too long, America and our nation has been trying to determine its own outcome. Our country has been trying to determine its own future. We've created technologies and we've created different things and different avenues of development and growth, as it relates to technology and as it relates to education and as it relates to careers, because we want to determine, our nation has been trying to determine its own outcome for centuries and decades. And it got to a point now where I believe God is saying, either I'm going to have complete control or this entire, earth is going to be completely out of control, unless you give me back the control that I once had. Over the years, we started taking prayer out of schools. We started taking God out of, schools, and we started taking them out of, communities, and we started taking God out of the things that, was prominent on, the thing and centered around, the things of God. We started taking God out of it. We even started taking God out of churches, and I know to a certain extent that doesn't sound, that sounds oxymoronic, that doesn't sound logical. But we've actually taken God out of churches. We've actually taken God out of ministry. We've taken God out of, our places of worship. And the only reason I know that is because, a lot of times, the doctrines that we preach or, the certain things that we say, as pastors, as teachers, as evangelists in a body, it's all geared toward, this present life. It's all geared toward, how can we make a better life for ourselves while we're here on earth? When the Bible clearly talks about how, we're just pilgrims passing through. This is not our home. Our home is in heavenly places. The Bible talks about that, we should set our affections on things above and not on things on the earth. It also talks about how we're seated in heavenly places with God. So basically, the Bible clearly states that our focus shouldn't be on this earth. Our focus shouldn't be on, what we can see with our natural eyes. It should be our goal. Our focus should be on what's to come. Our focus should be on, getting back to glory, getting back to that land of Eden that we came from. Our forefathers, Adam and our foremother Eve, came from, that place where nothing was, disrupted before, sin entered in, of course, but getting back to that place of glory where, we're back with our first love. We're back with the Father, and so in the meantime, our nation, has been kind of trying to be its own God. Our nation has been trying to be its own, determinant factor, for what happens and what takes place on earth and, for what goes on, and as a result, we've had things such as, school shootings, we've had things such as, just different acts of violence that's taking place. Right now we're in a current, civil unrest, as it relates to, racism, and that's just something that's just been repeating itself over and over again because, it was an issue, back in the 60s. It was an issue back in, the 50s, people of color were trying to get equal rights, as other people, and now we finally got the equal rights. But at the same time, that kind of, that issue has kind of resurfaced itself, and it's kind of like resurrected itself as a result of us not allowing God to have complete control, in the land. He said in his word that if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then when I hear from heaven, forgive their sin and heal their land. And so I believe that America is not really, at a place just yet where it's repented, and where we've actually really fallen on our face and really fallen to our knees to really acknowledge God for who he is, as a whole, as a nation. I don't believe that we're at that point just yet. I believe that our nation is at a point where it's just trying to see what's going to happen and what's going to take place from day to day. We're kind of just living from day to day at this point. Yeah, you have some people that, during this pandemic, they've come back to God. The backslider has reunited back to God because of this pandemic, because everything is so uncertain and everything is so unpredictable. But you have those who are still, living for themselves and trying to make an own outcome for themselves and trying to determine their own future and their own destiny. And they haven't quite really, plugged into God like they need to, you know. As far as with Christianity, this season, I'm noticing that it's been a lot of growth for Christians. Those of us has been, walking with God and talking with God, for years. It's been a season of growth and development for us. It's been a season of inconvenience, to a great extent, And see, one thing, about temperance, God wants us to maintain temperance because even the things that we can't control, he wants us to maintain a spirit of self-control to the point where not being able to have control doesn't control us, not being able to determine our own outcome, not being able to determine our own plan and our own destiny. And, those things don't have control over us, I think over the years we've been trying to have control over things that God wanted control over, but the things that God wanted us to actually work at trying to control, we've been kind of like allowing those things to be out of control. One example would be, the lust of our eyes, lust of our flesh, our sensual desires. It seems like we're almost living in a Sodom and Gomorrah type of state all over again because nowadays, it's so about pleasure. Nowadays, men are more lovers of themselves than lovers of God. Men are more lovers of pleasure than lovers of God. It's all about doing what makes you happy. It's all about doing what pleases you. And as long as we're doing what pleases us, as long as we're doing, what makes us happy, we're not really plugging into God. We're not really pleasing God. The Bible talks about that in his flesh dwell of no good thing. And they that are in the flesh cannot please God, So as a result of us pleasing ourselves, it's impossible to please yourself and please God at the same time. When you please God and when we do things to, please God, we get pleasure in pleasing God because he creates in us both to will and do of his good pleasure, and his joy is our strength. So knowing that he's well pleased, is what gives us as believers joy. It's what gives us, peace of mind, knowing that God is pleased, not the other way around. So I believe that, as a result of that, us being lovers of pleasure, more than lovers of God, that's the reason why our world is so flipped upside down now. That's the reason why, things are so out of control, because we've been trying to please, ourselves. We've been trying to please flesh. We've been trying to please, everything about us. We've been trying to please, do what makes us happy, even though it's killing us on a day-to-day basis, like I said in a live video, I think it was a couple of days ago, people know that smoking is bad, for their health, but yet, they still have cigarettes that they're selling on the market, society has deemed, smoking as being, unhealthy, society has deemed gambling as being, an addiction, but yet, we still have casinos that are open, we still have different places that we can go to gamble and to place bets and everything, but, it's like, America, our nation, for years and centuries, we've been kind of like talking out of two sides of our mouths. We've been kind of saying one thing but doing another. We've been saying, for those that commit sexual acts, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna prosecute you. But at the same time, we still keep such things as pornography, available. We still keep things such as strip clubs available. Things that entice the flesh, things that entice the mind psychologically, things that entice, and fuel, misconduct and things that, are causing us to misbehave, so to speak. We still keep those things available, and, God is saying, with 2020, with COVID-19, he's saying, listen, I'm going to pour out my spirit upon all flesh, those who accept me, I'm going to do it, but at the same time, I want to show you how much out of control you were and how much control that you don't have. And I want to show you that I do want control back over my first love. I want control of my nation. God is not the type of God who just wants to have control for just having control. He wants to be that husbandman that provides for his bride, that takes care of his bride, that caters to his bride. But he can't cater to the bride if the bride is constantly um, you know just walking in its own direction. If the bride is committing adultery with the things that please the flesh, the things that gratify the sensual desires. God can't really provide and be that groom that he needs to be. So I just want to encourage those of us, definitely maintain temperance, maintain self-control, because we're in a place where, things are out of control in our nation and things are out of control in our world. It doesn't mean that, our minds have to be out of control along with it, or our hearts or, our emotions have to be out of control with it. Many of us have encountered, just this year alone, a lot of disappointments, COVID-19 and, the pandemic has, put a spin on, our daily routines. A lot of us, we're used to going to work physically, leaving the house, going to work. Now, a lot of us, we have to work from home, or for those of us that are, not working, you have to wait for something else to open up. So, at the same time, you're kind of like in an uncomfortable state, as far as with, going on vacations, COVID-19 has prevented that because of the safety and the social distancing, awareness thing, and so it's kind of like put us in a state of uncomfortability and disappointment because we can't really travel like we want to, because there's a virus out there, so we have to be careful, so a lot of us who go on yearly trips, or annually go camping, and that sort of thing, we can't really do that because the pandemic has said, we want you to stay at home, we want you to stay confined, and so a lot of us, I know that's kind of like playing with our emotions and that's playing with our minds, so to speak, because a lot of us are not used to being at home, restricted from going to certain places or, doing certain things or, traveling like we want to because of a virus that's out there, So it's real easy to lose control, over our emotions because of that. It's real easy to lose control over, over our emotions, It's real easy to lose control and fly off the handle because we can't really control what's going on around us. But I just want to encourage those of us. I want to encourage you, listening to this video, to just rely on God to have complete control in your life, because there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger perspective in the midst of all this, he said he'll never leave us nor forsake us. There's a bigger picture, there's a bigger perspective. He wants us to just know that he's in control and that he's putting things in place in a proper perspective where they belong. I believe God is putting our nation, our country back in alignment the way it is, the way it needs to be. He's doing it, starting from the government on down, starting from the presidents on down. He's realigning our nations. He's realigning, our country. So that way, everything else can kind of fall back in place where it needs to be. We may never go back to what was normal. We never go back to what was we consider normal or comfortable. We may never go back to that point. But whatever the new normal may be, or whatever the new level of pressure may be, God is using this year to prepare us all as a nation, and especially as a body of Christ. Is using that. He's setting the stage to prepare us for something that's bigger that we can't see. But my prayer is this, that we, continue to allow God to do what it is that he's doing, taking us through that refiner's fire. A lot of us as Christians, we've been going through, certain things on a personal level, myself included, different things that God is doing to, mature and, develop things and grow. And, one thing about fire, when God takes you through the refiner's fire, he brings up the dross to the surface. He brings up things that are unnecessary. And, he does away with it. It's kind of like a tree that gets pruned. God does pruning for trees that are bearing fruit so they can bear much more fruit. So if it feels like God is cutting away at things, and he's constantly pricking at things, it's not because he's trying to be a bully, and it's not because he's trying to pick on you, so to speak. But one thing he wants to do is he wants you to bear much more fruit. He wants to kind of scale some things back so that way you're in a greater position and a greater capacity to produce more and to produce greater. Your greater is coming. Your harvest is coming. So I just want to, just definitely encourage you to just stay in the fight, stay in the battle. The race is not given to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, but to the one that endures to the end. COVID-19, it may be over, by the year 2021, or it may not be over, it may continue, for however long. But at the end of the day, God is still in control. The Bible talks about the earth as the Lord's and the fullness thereof, you know. So everything that belongs to this earth, everything that's in this earth, people included, presidents included, government included, it all belongs to God. He has full control over it. Nothing is happening by surprise when it comes down to God knowing about it. Nothing is catching God off guard. Nothing is catching him by surprise. God is choosing to use the pandemic. He's choosing to use the job loss. He's choosing to use disappointments, different things that we may have encountered this year because of COVID-19. He's choosing to use those things to fashion us and to mold us as the potter does the clay, for his purpose and for a specific reason. He's using all those things. Nothing is too small for God to use. God doesn't just use the big things like the pandemic. He uses things concerning the pandemic. He uses things concerning, different things that may have stemmed from this year alone, 2020, upsets and letdowns and disappointments and, broken relationships and broken friendships. He's using all those things to fashion us and to produce an eternal way to glory that we can't see, with our natural eyes. So I want to encourage you with that, and I want to leave you with that. And, I definitely want to encourage you with peace over your mind, to, allow God to just, form and fashion your mind to be at peace. Isaiah 26:3 says he'll keep them in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him. So I want to encourage you to keep your mind stayed on God, even though it's hard to do, even though you see what you're seeing through the news and you're seeing what you're seeing through, the radio or hearing through the radio. I want to encourage you, faith come by hearing and hearing by the word of God. Sometimes you got to turn off the radio so that you can hear God. Sometimes you got to turn off, the news so that way you can hear what God is saying. This nation is definitely, in an uproar right now, but, greater is he in me than he that's in the world, so I want to encourage you with that. I want to leave you with that. And, I just want to go ahead and definitely, just leave you with that. And any questions, any concerns, feel free to inbox me, feel free to subscribe, feel free to follow me, if there's anything that you want to actually hear concerning, oh God, concerning different topics about this nation, concerning different topics about, how God, who God is, definitely inbox me. Definitely, if you have a prayer request, definitely inbox me, definitely, get a hold to me and connect with me, and once again, just want to encourage you, leave it with that. Pastor Andrew. All right. Amen.